Britain is a land built on stories, not the kind written in books, but the ones whispered in firelight and carved into stone. For centuries, people here believed the world around them wasn't empty. Castles echoed with restless spirits, moors concealed beings older than memory, and the sea itself carried voices that did not belong to men. These weren't fables for children, but warnings whispered from generations to generations. Tonight, we step into those shadows and uncover 7 of the mythical creatures the UK has never forgotten. Number 7. The Black Shuck. At the top of our list today is Black Shuck, a mere dog, but not the kind you'd ever want to pet. In the misty countryside of East Anglia, people spoke of a monstrous dog with eyes that glowed like fire. They called it Black Shuck. I mean, imagine walking alone on a moonless night, the hedgerows closing in, the wind carrying only your footsteps. And then you see it, huge, shaggy, dark, and silent. Sometimes the beast moved without a sound, stalking from the shadows. Other times, it howled so fiercely it shook travelers to their core. The very name Shuck comes from the Old English word skuka, meaning demon. And to those who lived here, that's exactly what it was. Not a dog, but a death omen. People swore that if you saw Black Shuck, someone close to you would die soon. For the origins of this story, some point to the Vikings who settled on the Norfolk coast. They told of Odin's great black hound or of the war dogs of Thor. But wherever it came from, Black Shuck became part of the English landscape itself. This one Quora comment tells enough about how deeply ingrained Shuck is in the UK's mythical world. There are stories of Black Shuck, also called a Grim or a Black Shrug or a Bargeist, all over the UK. And depending on where in the UK you are, it can be a killer, it can be a harbinger of bad luck or your own death, or it can actually be a protector. So, does a Black Shuck really roam the dark lanes of East Anglia? Maybe not, but when the night is quiet and the mist rolls in, many still walk a little faster, just in case. Number 6. The Knockers. The 6th creature in this video is what Cornish miners once called the Knockers. When Cornish miners dug deep underground, the earth pressed heavily above them and the tunnels swallowed their light. Every swing of a pick echoed back through the stone, but sometimes another sound answered. A sharp knock, clear and deliberate, from somewhere further in the dark. It wasn't the rhythm of tools, and it wasn't the work of any man. To the miners, it could only be the Knockers. To them, that sound was everything. Some believed the Knockers were the spirits of those who had died in cave-ins, warning the living to turn back. Others said they were mischievous goblins, luring men into unstable shafts for their own amusement. Either way, you listened because ignoring them could cost you your life. Superstition ran so deep that miners left offerings like crusts of bread, bits of pasty, as a way to keep the Knockers on their side. So, are the Knockers just a myth? Maybe, but back in those days, every knock carried a choice. Listen and live, or ignore it, and be buried beneath the stone. Number 5. Redcap. The 5th creature in this video is the Redcap. If you think goblins are just mischievous tricksters like the ones you've seen in Harry Potter or Labyrinth, you're wrong. On the Anglo-Scottish border, the folklore told a much darker story. Redcaps weren't pranksters, they were killers. Redcaps were described as short, wiry creatures with burning red eyes, long teeth, and taloned hands. They wore iron boots and carried a pike or scythe, but their most disturbing feature was the cap on their heads, stained crimson with human blood. According to legend, a redcap had to keep his hat soaked in fresh blood at all times. If it dried out, he would die. The most famous tales place him in the ruins along the border between England and Scotland, places already soaked in centuries of violence. Some claimed he was the restless spirit of those massacres, others that he was a demon drawn to bloodshed. Either way, he became the very image of cruelty, a predator that lived in the silence of crumbling castles. So, did redcaps really stalk the borderlands? We don't know, but when you stand in a ruined tower as the wind whistles through the stone, it isn't hard to imagine iron footsteps closing in behind you. Number 4. Banshee. Unlike the monsters that stalk the land or the sea, the Banshee doesn't hunt, she warns. Her presence is felt in her cry, a piercing wail said to foretell death. Across Ireland and other parts of Britain, Families swore they heard her keening outside their homes on the eve of tragedy. Sometimes she appeared as a pale, beautiful woman with streaming hair. Other times she was described as old, withered, and cloaked, her face hidden in the dark. But always the sound was the same, a chilling lament that froze the blood of those who heard it. Her name comes from the Irish word Banshee, meaning woman of the fairy mound. In Scottish Gaelic, she is known as the Banshee. These mounds, called the Sida, were ancient burial hills believed to be gateways to the otherworld. From them came the Banshee, not tied to a single place, but to families themselves. Stories tell of her combing her long hair at night, leaving silver strands behind as tokens of her visit. Some even believed she roamed freely, a spirit bound only to death itself. One Quora user even described hearing a scream so unearthly that her dog growled. The next morning, her neighbor was found dead. Skeptics argue her cry was nothing more than the wind through the hills or the shriek of a barn owl in the night. But for those who heard it, there was no mistaking it. Number 3. Selkies. At number 3, we have the Selkies, shape-shifting beings said to dwell along the icy shores of Scotland, the Orkney, and the Shetland Islands. In the sea, they're seals. But on land, they can slip out of their skins and walk among us. The earliest written record of Selkie tales dates back to the 18th century, through oral traditions in the Northern Isles. In some versions, the word Selkie simply meant seal, but over time it became tied to the idea of shapeshifters. Stories often spoke of men who discovered a Selkie woman's skin hidden on the shore. By taking it, he forced her to remain in human form and marry him. Many such tales ended the same way. Years later, the Selkie finds her stolen skin and returns to the sea, leaving her human family behind. The ballad The Great Silkie of Sule Skerry, collected in the Orkney Islands, tells of a Selkie father who claims his child, then disappears back into the ocean depths. But the Faroe Islands hold one of the most famous stories, the legend of Kaupakonan. In it, a farmer kills a Selkie woman's husband and 2 sons. Grief turned to fury, and she cursed the island of Kalsoy. Some shall be drowned, some shall fall from cliffs and slopes, and this shall continue, until so many men have been lost that they will be able to link arms around the whole island. In the years that followed, deaths at sea seemed to fulfill her words, proof to the islanders that Selkies were not only mournful, but vengeful. But Selkies were not only female. Male Selkies were believed to be strikingly handsome, said to seek out women who were dissatisfied with their lives on land. In some traditions, children of these unions were born with webbed fingers, unusual eyes, or an unnatural longing for the sea. So, did Selkies ever walk among us? Likely not, but in whispers they never truly left. Number 2, Welsh Dragon. If Game of Thrones taught us anything, it's that a dragon on your side can change the fate of kingdoms, which is proved by the second creature in this video, the Wales' own Draig Gosh, the red dragon, a symbol so powerful it still flies on the nation's flag today. Unlike the pale skeletal beasts of European heraldry, the Welsh dragon is described as massive, muscular, and fiery red. Scales like armor, a barbed tail coiled for attack, wings stretched wide against the sky, and eyes burning with power. Even in early manuscripts, it is drawn mid-roar, claws outstretched, the very image of resistance. The story begins at Dinas Emrys, a hill in North Wales. According to the Historia Brittonum, written in 828 AD, King Vortigern tried to build a fortress there. But each night, the walls collapsed. When the boy seer Merlin was summoned, he revealed the cause. 2 dragons fought beneath the hill. A red dragon for the Britons, a white dragon for the Saxons. And in the end, the red prevailed, a prophecy that Wales would endure against conquest. The tale spread through Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britannia in the 12th century and became inseparable from Welsh identity. In 1485, Henry Tudor marched into the Battle of Bosworth with the red dragon on his standard, seizing the English crown. From that moment, the dragon wasn't just a story, it was a living emblem of survival, stitched into banners and carved into stone. Unlike the ghostly hounds and goblins of other British tales, the red dragon was not feared as an omen of death. It was revered as a reminder that in the struggle between invader and native, the spirit of Wales would not be broken. Number 1. Fairies. The first creature in this video isn't a single face, it's an entire race called the fair folk. Across Britain, in England, Scotland, and Wales, they weren't considered cute or harmless. They were powerful, unpredictable, and easily offended. People avoided the word fairy altogether, calling them the good folk for safety. Farm doors were guarded with iron nails and horseshoes. Rowan branches were tied with red thread. Milk, bread, or coins were left at thresholds and wells. Parents feared changelings, a sickly child swapped by the fair folk, so charms hung over cradles and babies were never left alone at dusk. In Scotland, people divided fairies into two groups, the Seelie Court, which was helpful, and the Unseelie Court, which was dangerous. In Wales, they were called the Tylwyth Teg. Old stories warn never to step into a ring of mushrooms, known as a fairy ring, because time worked differently there. You might think only minutes had passed, but when you returned, years could be gone. And there were strict rules. Never eat their food, never say thank you, and never reveal your true name. Belief in fairies lasted surprisingly long. In 1917, two girls in Yorkshire, Elsie Wright and Frances Griffiths, created the famous Cottingley Fairies photographs. By 1920, even Arthur Conan Doyle defended them in the Strand magazine. Years later, the girls admitted they faked the pictures, but claimed they really had seen fairies. Even today, some people claim they've met them. So are the fair folk real? Probably not. Yet the refusal to name them, the offerings on doorsteps, the circles no one treads after dark, those traditions linger. And when dusk settles over a hedgerow and a cold breeze moves against you, most people still do the sensible thing. They keep walking, and they don't look back. And that's a wrap. If you thought Britain's myths were terrifying, wait until you see what Japan and America has been hiding. Watch Part 1 and Part 2 with Japanese and South American creatures to uncover legends you were never supposed to know. Trust me, it only gets darker from here.